Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me. If you've listened to any of the YouTubes I've created over the years, you'll know that I have always remained positive and confident about where humanity and the Earth are headed, into a new, much higher frequency reality that's been called the fifth dimension. And I want to say that despite all that has happened in this last year and a half, and despite what's still occurring around the world, which is now pretty frightening, especially in certain countries, I still remain extremely positive and optimistic about humanity's future. I know that we are still on a solid, positive timeline, and that the Earth's frequency is now rapidly rising. And those of us determined to travel with the Earth into the higher dimension are quickly rising in frequency as well. I'm sure you've been experiencing this for yourself. And in fact, increasing numbers of people are awakening across the world now. It's something that the mainstream news just doesn't want us to know. However, something I've also always talked about is how steep the quantum jump into the new reality of the fifth dimension was going to be. I've described a lot of times what's been called the transitional times, or the times in between, that prophets and indigenous elders across the world have predicted for a long, long time that would precede humanity's quantum leap in consciousness, and that these times would be extremely rocky and challenging in many ways, both on the personal level and on the collective level out in the world. And this is because in order for us to make this momentous leap into 5D, all of our personal 3D-based patterns, emotions, the beliefs that we've been living in would have to be brought to the surface, acknowledged, healed, and released. We can't take this stuff with us. And also, all the corrupt 3D-based systems and institutions out in the world that were governing the collective of humanity would also have to be fully seen and recognized and dealt with and then let go of. Those things can't go with us either. And all of this has to happen within a relatively short period of time. Now, many of us have taken in this information over the years. We've accepted it and maybe even in certain ways looked forward to these challenging times that have been described, knowing that they would be eventually taking us into the fifth dimension. However, reading and hearing about these times happening, sometime in the future, and actually experiencing being on the verge of them about to really happen are two very different things, aren't they? And it's true. We've already been riding the waves of these transitional times in the last year and a half. We sure have. But I'll tell you, the sense I keep getting now is that what we've experienced so far has just been, kind of a practice run, just a dipping of our toes into turbulent waters. And that the times just ahead of us now, especially this fall, will be more of a full immersion into those waters. Now, I've never wanted to be an alarmist or someone who rants with sensational warnings, like some people out there. And I'm still feeling that way. Knowing what I deeply know about the Earth's trajectory into the much higher frequency, I'm not feeling at all frightened about our future. And I know on a deep level that those of us who are truly light workers, those of us who really wish the best for humanity and the Earth, are going to make it through these times ahead of us pretty much okay. I know that we are all equipped on every level to sail through them, basically unscathed, and vibrating at an even higher frequency than ever. However, the time has come when I feel it's necessary for us to become aware that world events are likely on the precipice now of becoming all the more tumultuous this coming fall, and that it's important for us to be prepared on every level for this. For a long time, we've been warned about the storm approaching us towards the end of 2021. And here we're almost there. And we've also, already been noticing a sharp uptick in dire situations that are currently happening around the world. The floods and the earthquakes, the fires, the triple-digit temperatures that are happening in so many places, droughts, water shortages, food shortages, and the disruption of transportation. And all of this is, of course, on top of the increasingly severe mandates and lockdowns, the passports, and the forced inoculations in certain places, especially in certain countries that have all been occurring recently. So where is all of this heading now? That's our question. What might happen next? What kind of pushback will the powers that be come up with now, with so many people protesting against the mandates? And also with so many people in the U.S. now really wanting the 2020 votes recounted again. That whole circus that's going on. It's true that these dark powers are definitely losing their power now, from what we understand. They've evidently lost access to most of their money resources, which is big. And arrests are apparently being made around the world. We keep hearing that. And these elite forces are now dividing into factions. They're fighting against each other now, just trying to survive. But I think we can safely assume that they still have some last-ditch plans they have yet to put into action. They're still in control in many areas of our lives. So it seems as if something will have to come to a storm of some kind on some level pretty soon. Now, whether this storm will be caused by these dark hat people or the white hats is unclear. It could be a combination of both, maybe a number of events that happen all together. It could be a false flag of some sort that's planned, or it may simply be a battle between both forces that we will finally be aware of. And it will likely and hopefully include some serious disclosure information to the general public that's finally being released. Wouldn't that be nice? Now, some reports out there talk about just 10 days or maybe 2 weeks of disruption that we'll be experiencing. Others speak of a couple of months. And still others speak about very rough conditions continuing on the Earth for about a year. Both scientists and intel providers have been predicting profound Earth changes for a number of years now that are going to be happening, in this next year. So who knows really about any of this? But whatever it is that may occur for however long, I've got to say, I, for one, am taking all predictions seriously at this point, and I'm responding to them with a calm preparation for what may be occurring rather soon in the future. I'm not in fear about any of this. I'm simply acting with what feels like a sense of practical wisdom. I don't want to be stuck in a place where food and supplies I need may suddenly become scarce or rise dramatically in price. So I have been calmly buying and storing all essential foods and supplements and toiletries I generally need and use. And I'm storing some extra cash at home just in case I will need them. And, if it ends up that nothing happens to cause a shortage of anything, I figure I haven't lost anything. I'll just end up eventually using what I've stored. Now, you may not resonate with any of this. You may not want to go into anything that sounds negative to you. And I understand that's fine if that works for you. But we all have to tune into our own truth inside of us and see what our intuition is saying to guide us through these times. We live in different places and we're doing different things. But if you do resonate with any of what I've been saying, it may be time to start storing some essentials for yourself and your family and your pets as well, if you have them, just so you'll feel secure for whatever might be coming down in the near future. And even if we don't end up experiencing a lot of physical disruptions, like I've been talking about in our lives, there are, of course, other disruptions that might be good to prepare for, such as those things that are already happening, like the mandates for lockdowns and forced inoculations. This is huge, especially in certain areas. And for those of us who do not plan to ever get one of those things in the arm, we may be in for some rough times ahead just on that front, especially, like I say, if we live in certain parts of the world. So we have to keep abreast of that news for sure, and to stand strong in what we believe and know. And even aside from all of that, although it's exciting to see people awaken to what the powers that be have been doing to humanity, as this awakening through disclosure continues, as it probably will do in days to come, many people are likely going to be responding not only with confusion, but also with rage and despair, right? All these people who've been duped for so long. And we'll all be dealing with that energy occurring in the collective as well. And actually, as truth continues to come out over time, it seems probable that in the next year or so, many of our political and medical and religious and educational and our military institutions that we've lived with all of our lives are probably going to begin to collapse, just leaving society in a further shambles around us. So again, I don't like sounding like an alarmist. Maybe all of this will happen so gradually, we'll be able to handle it all with some grace and ease. We can certainly hope so. But in case things are more challenging, it's just important for us to be prepared for all of this. And that's why I am making this podcast. And of course, what's also really important, meanwhile, is for us to focus on keeping our vibration as high as possible. For us to stay in joy and peace in our lives and love in our hearts, so that anything difficult that does end up happening will not affect us as strongly. We need to stay tuned to the good news that is happening in the world. And it is happening. You just have to find it where you can on the alternative internet. But also, as we know, we need to spend more time out in nature as much as possible. And we need to trust our inner guidance and our body's wisdom. Our bodies sometimes know things our minds and even our hearts don't quite know. So it's really good at this point to keep tuned into your body. Let it tell you what it knows. It can sense things. And I guess as much as possible, we just need to stay balanced between the two worlds we're now living in. The one in which great awakening is taking place, and the one that is still in the process of dying. It's necessary at this point for us to learn to straddle both these worlds simultaneously. It's not easy, but you know what? We were born to do this. As light workers, we have come during these times to assist humanity through this very transition we are all now learning to navigate. So let's just remember, as difficult as these times may be, they are also really thrilling times, aren't they? I mean, breathtaking. Think about it. We are standing at the doorway of the most momentous event humanity has ever experienced. And we are a big part of it. So, I send you love as we all find our way through the coming ascension storm. Many blessings.